Good day, all. Ira Epstein with your financial market wrap-up for this Monday, the 4th of November, 2019, and 3:17 p.m. Central Time. I get to say that now because of the time changes. Well, as you can see, the stock market, this will be your stock index closes. We're at 317, so that means these markets have finished up their trading. They will reopen at 3:30 for trading, so when I say finished up, I mean settle. They'll trade another half hour to 4 p.m. from 3:30 to 4 p.m. Central Time. Stock indices are up, but you brought the metals up in the past half hour. I don't think they settled quite that good. We'll find out. And we have some strange formations going on in the euro and the dollar index, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In the pound, there's a new Speaker of Parliament, so there's a lot going on. As you take a look, what can you fight here? New all-time high close in the S&P at 3075.50. This market is rip-roared, and remember what I was telling you. I still think this could be viewed by many technicians as a head, a shoulder, another shoulder, and you have an inverted head and shoulder formation. Do I put a lot on that? Well, number one, when I put out my chart recommendations, don't use chart formations to determine them. So that becomes, to me, the more important thing. But where could I see the market going? Well, if this is a top at 30.20 and the bottom, let's say, is 28.60, that is a difference of 160 points added on to here. So that could carry you to 31.80 as a minimum just from that inverted formation. That's how you do it. You're basically picking up the head and flipping it over. When I take a look at the swing lines, now you're back in my own yard. I see a pattern of higher lows, higher highs. This pattern gets broken if you come back down under 30.20.25. Now the 18-day moving average of closes is marching on. It's going to be very shortly attacking that 30.20. It probably happens tomorrow. And I say that because you're going to get a settlement up here and you're going to drop one of the 18 days back here. It should be up enough to just about get you to that 30.20 area or higher. Where's the resistance? I want you to look at the upper Bollinger Band. The odds of staying over a Bollinger Band is 5% of the time. The settlement's going to be 30.75.50. That is just underneath 30.77. Let's call that 25 for the lack of rounding. And the high today was 30.83. So you got through it and you're just riding it right now. And when I put on momentum, it's embedded. Now, what does embedded mean? On the slow stochastic, there are two numbers that whip back and forth. They're like moving averages, moving either side of each other. These numbers typically stall between 80, anything over 80, and under 20. That's the traditional way to look at it. And the way that this was taught is any numbers getting over there are overbought, any numbers under are oversold. I came up with the word embedded or locked in and said, when these numbers go sideways for several days or more, it tells me that during that process, each break is probably being met by good buying from the pros and a potential target, and there's many that can come up, but one of them is the upper Bollinger Band, and that's because in Bollinger Bands, the market will trade within them 95% of the time and stay out of them only 5%. So it's a logical spot where pros look at the first resistance area. Today being a Monday, a strong up Monday, wouldn't surprise me if you get something of a correction on a Tuesday. NASDAQ embedded reading. You had gotten up to the Bollinger Band here, backed off, and you're up to it again. So I'm going to keep repeating this. You also hit it here. Markets that hit that tend to run them if they're embedded, and that's all that is going on. It's pretty important, but it's what's going on. The Dow, first time we got up to the upper Bollinger Band. I think Friday we hit it? Friday's high was 27,278. You had missed the upper Bollinger Band, if I'm correct. Yeah, I am correct on that. And today you obviously got through it. So that's your first time hitting it. Notice, are you having embedded reading? I don't know. Both numbers are over 80 today. Both were over 80 on Friday, not so on Thursday. You're overbought into the upper Bollinger Band. Wouldn't be surprised if the market tries to back off of that tomorrow. Russell, first challenge since way back here, mid-October, and we're challenging the upper Bollinger Band. Everything bullish. We had something else. The 18-day average of closes had a bullish crossover over the 200-day. So that is going to be looked at as very important by analysts that use moving averages, and they'll say, oh, this market's on its way again. Something to think about. In the VIX, you have the bearish embedded reading, and prices have been gradually working down. This is a cash VIX. We'll see. The first challenge of a lower Bollinger Band in the VIX, especially when you're down at these low numbers like an 11. I've been noticing that the pros step in and they try to write puts against that, trying to get a bounce back in the market. We'll see if that happens or not, but an interesting day. I had done the Nikkei for you last week. Now remember, it was a holiday in Japan today, so while we're trading, you don't have all their market players there, but you have a higher high, lower low pattern, and you had one of these. This is important. This day was an outside day down. When you take out the high of an outside day down within the next session or the session after that, it's often a trap for the bears. And that's what's going on, I think, right here. And we'll see if I'm right on that, but could be getting up to that upper Bollinger Band yet. In the bond market, you've got the market now post. The Fed, all the other talk. So the market held a rally. And, I was writing about it in my newsletter. I said, why are we rallying in this market on Thursday and Friday? We finished the Fed on Wednesday, and they already said they're going to stand pat basically the rest of the year, if you read what was going on there. So today you're pulling back. I don't see a trend. I have a lower low, higher high. Market fighting a battle now between the 100-day and the 18-day average of closes, and momentum's lost. Same thing in the 10-year note with a lower high, higher low, with a higher high, lower low, back into those two moving averages and no momentum in the market. As you come to TLT, the same thing as the futures. A lower low, higher high, caught in these two moving averages. In other words, I'm not seeing a trend in any of the Treasuries. The dollar index, here's what I see here. You had an outside day down on Friday into an oversold condition. Oversold is not embedded, it's just oversold. If you take out the high of Friday, the first objective is the closest major moving average, which would be the 100-day. That's what you went to today. Now you got to wait and see what the market wants to do. It is not a trend. You have a higher high, lower low. You certainly have downside bias because you're under the 18-day average, but momentum is trying to pick up. I call the chart a mess. You're not a lot different in the euro. You had an outside day. I don't know if this was an outside day up. 120.75. Let me take that again. 112.07.5 was the high on Thursday, and the low is 111.63.5, and 112.03. We did not take out that high. All we did today is, from the looks of it, have an outside day down. Got the difference? So until today's high is taken out, the market is what? Got lower highs, lower lows, momentum down, but the bias is up. So if the market's going to drop, I see the first support being the 18-day average of closes. I think this market wants to work off an overbought condition. If today's highs are taken out on Tuesday or Wednesday, then I'll look for the closest up, the upper Bollinger Band or the 100-day average of closes. British pound. The market is losing its momentum. It was embedded. Now, embedded means both numbers were over 80 for at least 3 times in a row. It was back here. Let me teach you this. There's your 3. You can lose the embedded reading. You can only gain it back the day after it's lost. I know it sounds confusing. It isn't. I teach it in my charting course. It's really very simple. You gained it back. Gained it back on Friday. Now if you lose it again, you're playing that when it gets lost, first of all, when you lose them back to back, it's never a good sign. That doesn't mean it can't go higher, but it's just not a good technical sign. It's often a sign that price and the 18-day average, wherever they come in, want to meet now. I wouldn't be surprised that that is in fact what's going on. In the Japanese yen, I have a lower low, higher high. In other words, currencies are a pretty big mess right here. I think they're adjusting to last week's Bank of Japan, the Federal Reserve. There's just so much they're doing. In Bitcoin, you're in an uptrend. You have higher lows, higher highs. You are getting overbought. Solid resistance, 98.50 in terms of a Bollinger Band number. But in Bitcoin, you slip and slide all over the place, so just remember that. Then we get to Brent versus WTI crude in the January contracts. And I'm measuring the Jans because that's where most of the volume is. Looks like it's going to finish around 55.52. This was 55.55. You really have, if you just look at the settlements, lower highs and higher lows. And the market is fighting right at this 18-day moving average of closes. When you take a look at prices, though, look at this. Big up move. Now you went right to again to that upper Bollinger Band and you stalled. You're going to be about 30 points under it right now. Same thing happened in WTI, but this is December. So I went to January Brent because that's the closest active month. December still the active month in crude oil. WTI, and you can see you're fighting at these resistance levels. Gasoline, not a trend. You've got a lower low, higher high. You came roaring up today, got through the upper Bollinger Band, but it looks to me like you'll settle just under it. And in that gas, you got to be a weatherman for this. You know, I saw last night what was going on. They're showing all this Canadian air about to move down through the center of the country and then east. That's putting the market into a bid. You know, one of the things that I like to do is bring you information. Technical tips from the pros. So in this particular version, what's the square of 9 mean in GAN? Trade with money flow. Do you even know what it is? Rules for bottom fishing. I think the best rule is don't do it. And benefits, what they claim is relative strength. I prefer slow stochastics, but they're momentum oscillators. Then you get how do you optimize stops. Now, this is a really nice piece that they had put together. And when you look at this piece, it's well done. It's full of graphics. It explains how this works. If you're a person that believes in technical studies, this might be something that you want to add. It's totally free to you. All you're going to have to do is go to our website at www.iraepstein.com. When you're there, you're going to see free offers on the bottom right. Just click it. You'll be right into this area, fill out what you want. We'll email everything to you. You can also, from there, click right here. It'll take you to that page as well. I'm Ira. You have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow.